I'm StogieShane. Today I'm reviewing the Lotano Oval Maduro by A.J. Fernandez. This is the Robusto or 5x52 variety. They're met with great and rave reviews north of the 90s in scoring, I suppose. I'm not big on scores, but that kind of implies the quality of the cigar. It's a dark brown color, much like milk chocolate, and it's not very oily, but it's got a nice sheen on the wrapper. There's almost no stippling, but it's not exactly smooth either. Even without the presence of a lot of veins, it still feels kind of rough, like the backside of a leather belt. It's very firm, like a midwell steak or maybe the heel of the palm of your hand. But it's also spongy, so it should have some good draw and have a little bit of time built in. It should last about an hour, it would be my guess. The pre-light smell is very earthy and musty, a lot like a horse pasture, maybe with some hay bales out and about. It smells a little bit sweet too. I've smoked a few of these and I love them. They should be, this one I'm sure will be no different, but I've not yet reviewed one to really put out my thoughts on the flavors and such, so I'm kind of excited to do just that. I'm giving this one a Cuban cut. That's one of my favorite cuts, and I'm a little bit different from some people. A lot of folks claim that the Cuban cut doesn't do what I feel that it does. It should direct the smoke draw up across your soft palate, where you can pick up a lot more flavors from this cigar. That's highly debatable, but I find, at least in my experience, that it works. The initial taste before lighting it, the pre-light taste, it's a little bit salty, actually quite salty on the palate. And it's a little bit fungal, maybe like decaying leaves, but it's not at all unpleasant. It's quite spicy right at the beginning too, before even lighting it. And if you draw before lighting, you also pick up a lot of that fungal taste as well. I'm going to give this thing a good toast and get her fired up. One of the great things about this oval shape, even to be a 52 ring gauge, it should light up really nice and quickly. The initial light is definitely spicy, but there's a lot of cream too that works its way in to balance all of it. And that saltiness is still there. I suspect it'll last quite a while. It seems to be an inherent component of the wrapper itself. But that makes your mouth water. It kind of gets everything moving, and it helps to bring all of the flavors throughout your entire mouth. So right away your mouth is filled with a lot of the flavor. It kind of hits you like a grenade. It's not strong, but the flavor definitely hits you right away. So it's certainly a medium to full-bodied cigar. So we're just coming up on the end of the first inch. As you can see, it's starting to break away the ash just a little bit. I wanted to note that real quick before I ash the cigar. A moment ago it had a little bit of a slight run or an uneven burn. It wasn't really a run, but it caught itself up and recovered quite nicely. Let me ash this thing before it makes a mess. It's still a little bit salty, but not much. The salt is kind of waning away, but it still leaves about a lot of moistness in the mouth. So again, that carries through the palate very well. Lots and lots of plentiful white smoke, and the ash, as you could tell, is very bright, very white, not very flaky, so it's not making a big mess in my lap, and it doesn't want to break away very easily. A small cigar like this, especially with a little bit of a wide girth, and not much height to it, when you consider the shape of the oval, it's not surprising that after about an inch it wants to try and fracture. It took 2 or 3 taps to break the ash away, but I'd rather ash it in an ashtray than in my lap. Maybe if I was a little bit more adventurous, I'd see just how long it would go. But it's a very good smoke. It's still very creamy, but in spite of that, there's a lot of power. And with the moisture in your mouth, it really accents a lot of that power. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's certainly not a first thing in the morning cigar for a lot of people. Unless maybe you're drinking a bold coffee with it or something, then that would help to bring out a lot of that flavor and tone it down just a little bit. It's not acidic by any measure. There's not a lot of tannins in this cigar. The different flavors are starting to abound and starting to be discernible. It's still a little bit musty, and I'm still picking up a lot of straw flavors. Certainly a lot of hardwood notes. It's certainly not oak. It's a little bit, not that the cigar is acidic, but it's a little more acidic than oak. Maybe a little bit of cedar. And it's a little bit floral on the finish. It has a very long finish, which means that after you've exhaled and after you've talked or spoken for a little while or breathed a few moments, you still taste the cigar, and the taste starts to mature and becomes more distinct on the palate. So you can actually tell a lot about what's going on with the flavors if you give it a break after a few moments. I'll be back in just a few minutes. So at the end of the first third, you can see the ash is a little more flaky than it was in the beginning. It's not dropping in my lap, and it's not causing a mess. The construction's still very good, but this isn't one of those cigars you want to have a 3-inch ash contest with. The uneven burn that it got in the beginning was, I think, characteristic of the cigar. It tends to get a little uneven, like in this spot here, and then after a few moments it immediately catches itself back up. So you don't have to touch it up with a lighter. I haven't had to exhale through the cigar to try and heat the cherry up. And that's a good thing, because when they get flaky like this, if you try and exhale through or even try and relight, you end up dropping ash all on your lap or on the floor. It tastes a lot like a fir tree. It's more hardwood than cedar, but it's acidic like cedar. The strength of that flavor is kind of like a burnt coffee strength. It doesn't taste anything like burnt coffee, but it's a bold hit on your palate, just like what burnt coffee would be. The long finish is still there. The finish goes on and on as you continue to, if you relax after you've smoked for a few minutes. And it has a lot of mineral taste on that finish, kind of like rock or stone would have. So as you can see, I'm at the end of the second third. I've removed the Maduro band that resides just beneath the oval band. The ash continues to be a little bit flaky. It also continues to fracture just a little bit, so that is yet another indicator that it's not a long ash cigar. What I wanted to tell you is, I think in the first third of the cigar, and while being distracted with taking notes and doing my job of reviewing the cigar, since it's not a large ring gauge smoke, if you don't draw on it consistently every 60 or 90 seconds, that cherry is going to begin to go out, which is what this thing was doing. And I did not have to relight the cigar, but in the process of keeping it lit by drawing every 2 to 3 minutes between my side distractions here, it brought out a lot of acidity in the cigar that I don't think is necessarily inherent to the smoke. So you shouldn't encounter some of that acidity. So I guess I should recant a little bit of that fir tree flavor to give to you. I don't think that you'll be picking up much of that. I think you'll probably stop in the terms of the cedar department, not progress to fir tree. Now that I've got it lit and it's continuing, the cherry continues to glow inside the cigar, I pick up a lot of still hardwood flavors, but more in terms of an oak barrel. Stronger than an oak tree. Oak barrels take on a little bit more of a charred taste. So it's not as strong as cedar, but certainly stronger than oak. A lot of the saltiness is gone, but your mouth continues to water, so it brings all of that creaminess throughout your palate. There's a pepper coated taste on top of a soft creamy texture. So maybe like pepper coated toast is what I should tell you to expect. It's a very complex cigar, but it's not going to run the gamut of complexity with floral notes and with fruit notes, but it will with earthy flavors. So the long finish, as you continue to think about compost and decaying leaves, all of which are the cigars are very reminiscent of. you should expect on the finish a really peaty flavor, which is really nice. That peaty finish on the end really helps to, I guess, carry out a lot of the creaminess. As I finish up the final third of the San Lotano Oval Maduro, um, one thing I should tell you about is the saltiness is all but gone from the wrapper. So as that salt has disappeared, what it's done is it's stopped my mouth from producing the thin runny liquid that it had before, and now it's more of a thick viscous like caramel texture that carries all of that spiciness into your mouth, and it just coats and it remains. The oak barrel on the finish has now turned into kind of a polished oak, which is quite nice. So all of that spiciness remains, and the peatiness remains, and the meatiness remains, but that oak barrel gets a little more polished. It's the Oval Maduro retails for about $7.50. That's how it's priced here in my local store, so you should expect to pay about the same. Again, it's not very complex on the entire gamut of the floral spectrum and the fruity spectrum, but you'll pick up a lot of earthy flavors in this thing. And I'm kind of partial to earthy flavors anyways. If you concentrate a lot, you may pick up some notes like hay and straw, but it's so far on the finish that I suspect your cigar will start to go out if you wait long enough to try and pick some of that stuff up. So look for these at your local shop, or look for them on tobacco.com and pick up a few, because they're a bargain at $7.50. It's been a very reliable and extremely well constructed cigar. AJ Fernandez is no fool when it comes to blending cigars that are bold and will definitely hit you right in the mouth. So look forward to buying some, and I look forward to seeing you on my next review. Thanks.